So, 4 o'clock sharp. So, recognizing we want to be on time, appreciate everyone showing up this afternoon for this meeting to review the 2018 proposed capital. I already got one, thank you. The 2018 capital budget. We also have a new apparatus here, as you notice. And so we will be utilizing that as long as technology permits us to. So with that, let's just go ahead and begin. And Helen Tomic or Mr. Segedy, whoever is our main presenter here, please feel free to begin.
Is this on? Good afternoon. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present the 2018 capital budget in detailed review for City Council. Before we get started, I'd like to do introductions of city staff.
Yes, please.
That will be providing some guidance in this process as well. My name is Helen Tomic. I'm with the City of Akron Planning Department.
Very good. And their staff?
Yep, everybody in the back.
Everybody in the back? Okay.
Hello, Jim Hall,
the new guy, Jim Hall. Okay, very good. Yes, very good. And we'll ask if you didn't introduce yourself at this time, whenever you come forward, and to provide expertise, please give us your name and title. So with that, Ms. Tomic, let's go ahead and begin.
Our 2018 budget consists of expenditures at approximately $330 million. This includes 56.
Is it on?
What about that? Okay, sorry. So that includes, the $330 million includes funds for water and sewer capital. We have about 44% that's being dedicated for miscellaneous, and then at 7% at public facilities. It also represents a $42 million decrease from 2017, which is about 13% decrease from 2017 for the expenditure end. On the revenue side, we are expected to receive about $177 million from the state, which is about $47 million less than 2017, representing a 21% decrease. In addition, for the federal side, we're anticipating on receiving about $29 million, a decrease of $8 million from 2017, which is about a 22% decrease from 2017. Part of the budget also reflects the recently approved income tax increase of 0.25%. I think that everybody should have received a copy of that. Those expenditures show about $1.6 million to replace vehicles for the police department, about $300,000 on the police side for an upgrade in the 911 software system. Additionally, on the fire department end, we've talked extensively about the replacement of Fire Station 2. So the 2018 budget reflects a portion of the cost to rebuild Fire Station 2. Also shows about $900,000 for a new ladder truck. And we've also talked extensively about replacing fire gear, a second set of fire gear for our firefighters. So that's budgeted about $418,000. Additionally, we've budgeted about $4 million of the new income tax money to go towards our resurfacing program. What we'll be discussing today is the transportation, parks and recreation, public facilities, miscellaneous housing and economic development portion of the budget. That's about $146 million. Those changes, I don't know if you can see this, how well you can see it. There are some increases from previous years. Our local share did increase from $81 million to $91 million. Our state share did decrease from 2017 of $26 million to $14 million in 2018. Our expenditures are pretty much even across the board. There is a slight decrease from economic development, and that can be attributed to some of the Goodyear projects that have gone offline between previous years and 2018. On the investment side, revenue side, about 63% of our local funds are going towards transportation, parks, recreation, and housing projects. This is a breakdown, and I won't go through all of these, but these different screens show what our local revenue sources are for the items that I just mentioned. The larger ones are income tax at $50 million. We have some courtroom fees in there, and the other larger ones are general obligation debt. On the regional side, we're anticipating of receiving about $5 million. This comes from our JEDs and from the Department of DOES. I don't remember what that stands for. We can look that up for environmental services. Thank you, Jim. The state revenue side, we are looking at about $8 million in Ohio Public Work funds and about $2 million from the Ohio Department of Transportation. On the federal side, we're anticipating receiving about $28 million. $5 million of that is for our Tiger Grant going along Main Street, and about $7.5 million for our bridge replacement program. Private revenue includes about $6 million that we're allocating towards these different project groups. And then I think that we're ready to get started with the actual budget. So we're going to start off with the transportation side of it. Looking at some of the things we have in place right now, we have about $3 million budgeted under the Aqueduct Street green improvements. This is actually underway, and we look for completion of this project in 2018, summer or fall of 2018. Canton Road, East Market Street, we're looking at preliminary design replacement for signals along that intersection project. East Exchange Street, this is going to be a project right along.
Ms. Tomic,
Yes.
1 second, please. There's a question here.
Yes.
I was trying to get to you before. On page number 3, where it shows
Are you looking at
federal line.
page 3 or
I
screen
think we're
3?
on the screen.
Okay. So, federal revenue.
Actually, it's on page 3. But, yeah. So is that a reduction of 10 million?
I do believe there was a reduction on the federal end. I got all of them except for that one. Was there a reduction?
It's by the slide. Yeah.
I think. Slide 6.
Federal revenue?
Which one is slide 6?
Let's see.
It was 2016 capital investment. You said the federal side?
Section 2008 capital investment and community development. So we talked about the $10 million
early.
increase for local.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about the state $12 million reduction. And then there was a federal. Is there a reduction of 10 million?
There was a reduction of about $8 million on the federal side.
About 8 million?
Mm-hmm. And that could be from various either highway projects or different allocations that we were anticipating on getting.
Right, like a lot of times the federal funds, they're not an annual allocation of just federal funds, they're different categories of funding. So if there's a year where we got more money from, say, the United States Department of Transportation, it depends on the project. So I would suspect if we went back and looked at the prior year, that's what that is.
And we can
Very good.
get specific information for you if you like, as it pertains to that. I'm just trying to look offhand where the difference was. We did receive more CMAQ money in 2017, congestion mitigation air quality money. In 2017, it was about $8 million, almost $9 million. And I don't see that in the 2018 budget. Mhm.
Those are federal funds.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, on to Aqueduct.
So the aqueduct project, I'm sorry, I'll try to slow down a little bit too.
You're too fast, Ms. Tomic.
Let's see, aqueduct, the east, actually, aqueduct, we were looking at that being underway and actually a completion of summer or fall of 2018. Canton Road, those would be design work for the intersection along East Market and Canton Road. Again, these are just preliminary design work.
Is this question?
Yes.
On this particular one, Mr. Oak's probably aware of is this the roundabout?
We're looking at different options.
Okay,
We're looking at different options, yes.
good, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
East Exchange Street, complete street, we're looking at, as that indicates, a complete street and a road diet along East Exchange. That's probably not going to take place until 2019, but in 2018, we are doing some preliminary planning with a consultant that we brought in to look at some different options, perhaps putting some paint on the street and see what works and what doesn't work and what the numbers look like before we actually go into full-fledged construction on the Exchange Street. So I think we are looking at fall of 2018 to actually start a road diet and seeing what the traffic patterns would show us before we go ahead with permanent improvements in 2019, 2020.
Good, thank you.
High Street, Main Street, we're going to look at a traffic study and converting those to two-way streets. Hopefully, we'll look at looking at that in 2018. Arterial collector streets, Main Street Promenade. This is one that we're all very familiar with. We received a Tiger grant to go along with this project. We have a variety of funding sources, and one that you don't have on your in your original budget that was given to you at the end of the year, but we just recently received word that we are set to receive a grant from AMAT's STBG funds at about $800,000. So we'll be putting resources into that project.
So that's $800,000 from AMATS,
Correct.
which will increase that overall to 25 million
Well, what
six
we're
or something?
proposing on doing the debt that we had to that project at $2 million, we're going to take $800,000 of that and move it to our resurfacing
That's
program.
that. Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're also
Obligation.
Okay.
Go to 1.2.
We are also looking at preliminary design work of full improvements on Mall Avenue, looking at going from South Hawkins Street to West Exchange Street, and again, that's just design work for 2018. Yes, sir.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had residents come down and speak in regards to that. Do you know, is that looking at preserving the look?
The brick?
Meaning, yes,
The brick?
Bricks.
The brick?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes. It may add a little to the cost, or maybe a lot, but we are looking at preserving the bricks along that street.
Just for, if, I know the gentleman brought a study from another community about the cost savings or the comparison. Yes, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
I'll get with our clerks to get a copy of that, just to, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Very good. We move on to Talmadge Avenue improvements.
So Talmadge Avenue, we've done some preliminary work, temporary work. We are looking at acquisition of the properties that we need to take this project further. And additionally, in 2018, we will also be looking at designing full improvements for Talmadge Avenue.
Samples?
So Helen, on this project right here on Talmadge Avenue, will those improvements include the talks of them raising the International Institute if they're trying to widen the street? Because my understanding they're supposed to be...
We are looking to acquire the International Institute, and we've been coordinating with them to find a new home for that with them. Those discussions are still underway, but that is the end goal, is to move their current facility. They have expressed a very strong interest in staying in North Hill. So
Oh, yeah,
we're trying to
absolutely.
accommodate that. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good. Okay, very good. Bridge maintenance?
So this is, bridge maintenance is an annual allocation for our bridge maintenance program. The next line item is Evans Avenue Bridge over CSX. This is one that we've been looking at for quite a few years. And in 2017, we were awarded fast lane funds. And I don't remember what the line item is for fast lanes, but that has given us the 5.7, and that was the missing piece. So this project is going to be going forward in the next
18.
18 and 19, correct.
Okay.
Home Avenue Bridge over Little Cuyahoga River. It's a water and sewer capital project, working with the county and looking at realigning the water lines under the bridge to be replaced and looking at new sanitary sewer lines along that.
Can't picture that.
224, 241 intersection signals. We'll be looking at making some improvements along those projects as well, in coordination of the signals along those roads. Forest Edge Drive, we applied for and we received Ohio Public Works funds in 2017. We will be entering a contract agreement with the state by July 2018, and then we'll start improvements on the Forest Edge project. 4th Street improvements. This is a plan to apply for OPWC funds in 2018. So these would be plans for preliminary plans to submit that along with our project for funding. Resurfacing. So in light of the passage of the income tax funds, we have increased our resurfacing budget from $2.5 million in 2017 to $7 million in 2018.
Very good. And this may not be reflected in the budget you have in front of you, so FYI to everyone, but that proposed budget we will get a copy of.
Yes, correct.
So, and it's reflected though on your little laptop thing.
So that is looking at about $2.4 million in arterial and collector streets and almost $4 million in the residential resurfacing program. 2.5.
Helen, could you tell us what the difference, I mean, I know the proposed was $6,594,000 from the original proposed budget, but now it's at 7. Can you tell us what that, how we did that?
We took the $800,000 from the savings from the Promenade project, the Main Street project. So we moved $800,000 here, and then there's also an increase from our income tax resources, and then we also made some adjustments on special assessments, and then we also moved money from another project that we'll discuss later, the Veterans Memorial Park.
Okay.
We felt that project will probably take place in 2019.
Okay.
So we took the GO that was assigned to that, and we moved it to the resurfacing program to get us up
Gotcha.
to the $7 million.
Could be up.
Looking at whatever,
Well, and more, if you resurface more streets, you're
Yes.
gonna, the special assessments will, that budget will increase.
yeah.
But in terms of, well, we're not looking at raising,
No, we're not raising the
The
rates.
rates.
No,
No.
we're not raising the rates. No.
Yeah.
Nope.
yeah,
Thank you.
very good. Oh, Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the residential streets, okay, like on Forest Edge, I know we have the 0.25% income tax increase for infrastructure. Have we laid out priorities for which streets or how we're going to go about addressing some of the streets? And was this included as a priority street?
So the resurfacing program will be, when Public Services comes in for the resurfacing program, that will be the $7 million that's right here. So that'll include what their list of recommended streets and what's due for resurfacing.
So I should save that question for them.
Well, they can answer it to a degree, but it will come back to council probably in March. I think we're looking at March or April to bring in the resurfacing legislation.
For versus yeah, this is a
Yes.
different pot and a different program.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of exactly what resurfacing streets are going to be done. But the Forest Edge is a commitment to redoing that,
The full depth
everything. Yeah,
improvements, yes.
everything, curbs, sidewalks,
Street trees, yes.
street trees, et cetera. So, okay, good. Mr. Neal?
Just that is something that had been raised with the city
Oh, Mr. Swirsky.
since before I was a councilman, and they were told for many years, next year. So they finally got some state money and other sources.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Swirsky. Please raise your hand, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. The picture here made me think of this. With all the talk of, and the advertisements now that are coming out about the autonomous cars, if that's the right terminology, are there any special requirements for streets in that regard? Or have they even talked about, is there a different code or anything for that?
There's a lot, I won't get into a ton of details.
Okay.
Talk about it too long, but right now, I mean, a lot of experts feel like truly autonomous cars are a pretty long ways off still. I think in theory, what they help with is streets can carry more traffic for the same amount of people on them because the cars can be closer together because there's less human error or parking and things like that. But I haven't seen a lot of research about how that would affect like street geometry so much.
Okay, thank you.
Something I'm sure we'll keep an eye on.
This is amazing. I'm sure everybody here is as happy as I am about going from 2.5 million to 7. That's going to be a big, very, very big deal for us in terms of resurfacing. So, good.
The final line item on the resurfacing program is the resurfacing of Canton Road. It's a state-sponsored grant. I think it's strictly 100% funded by the state at $1.1 million. We do have a little bit of GEO as our match component. Sidewalk program, looking at our traditional sidewalk replacement program, in addition to our commercial sidewalk reconstruction program, and we have a couple of Safe Routes to School programs that are underway or are going to be looked at in 2018. And having said that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Ashley for Parks and Recreation. Here. Oh, any questions with resurfacing or transportation?
Okay, Parks, we're on to Parks and Recreation. Adams Run. Oh, question, Ms. Mobian?
I'm just curious, as you drive around the city and you run into some real major potholes, what responsibility do we have, or if someone runs across one and damages his or her car, do we have any kind of obligation to those, and how do you find out about them?
I think if there is damage to a vehicle, they can file a report with their law department. And then,
Yeah, claims
claims
commission.
And how do you find out about them so you can repair them as quickly as possible?
I'm sure those are reported to 311.
Just call.
And then once they go to 311, they go to Mr. Hall's office, and then they send a crew out there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Samples?
Thank you. I have a question on this sidewalk program, the very last one for Safe Routes to School, $65,000 for a coordinator position. And it says contact with some county health department. What does that mean, a contract with them? Is this something we're splitting with the county, or we're paying a $65,000 salary to a coordinator? Just trying to figure out what that's about.
We referred that to Mr. Chiodecki.
Somebody? Yeah,
The 2017, this is Mike Chiodecki from engineering. The 2017 Safe Routes to School program, that actually is a line item to help us get that next round of funding. So And realistically, we only have the first 2 programs funded. One's being advertised right now. One will be bid this spring, so 2 of them really will be out in construction this year. The 2017 is to identify the next phase and get the money so that we can continue that program.
Yeah, this, the description may be a typo or what have you, I'm not sure, but it does say, in fact, on here, the coordinator position. So is that to align all the various funding sources, or is that what that's part of that?
I know they're working with traffic engineering, is working with some health department on that. And those funds may have been channeled, they're not city funds.
Right, other than the general obligation of 5,000.
The funding for that originally, which helped set up the study work for the first 2 programs, we worked with City of Akron Traffic Engineering, and we also worked with the University of Akron, that some of the monies went to them as a grant. They teamed up with the City of Akron to study all of our school Safe Route to School program, make the identification, make the priority list. Then each of those groups of high priority project we went after funding for through the Safe Routes to School safety monies through ODOT, which is federal money, which funded the first 2 programs. We'd like to continue to go after more of that safety money for the Safe Routes to School program this year, and again, hopefully team up with the University of Akron, utilize our existing list, make sure our priorities are still what they were identified a few years back, and again, continue the program to go after additional federal money to fund the next round of safety projects for the Safe Routes to School.
But I'm okay with the safe routes to school. That's not my question. The question is, where's the $65,000 coming from for a coordinator position? I know some of it looks like it's block grant, but are we paying this by ourselves, or are there other funding sources that's paying for a coordinator? And what exactly is the coordinator position entail?
The budget shows about 5,000 of GO money, and the rest is federal funds, but what we can do is reach out to traffic engineering and to the county and get an answer to you next week.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get you an answer on who the coordinator is and where they would be based. And
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kilby?
Mr. Ashley, going back to the Craig Road sidewalk project, we only put sidewalks on the east end. Does that mean only the people on the east side will be assessed for sidewalks? Okay. Will we do the curbs too, or driveway approaches?
Yeah, that's the project that actually went to council today for construction. That, again, is identified as a route that hasn't had sidewalk for many years. As part of the safety funds and the federal dollars let us utilize and put sidewalk in that area. The curb that would be replaced with that normally is for wheelchair ramps, but this is more of a sidewalk type to get the pedestrians from walking in the street in that area. So that was the intention. Just where we put an improvement to the sidewalk would be assessed.
Okay, good. One other quick question. Do nonprofits like AMHA pay assessments?
Good question. I don't think it's as high as there's a difference. Yeah. It's lower. Okay, good. Any other questions on the sidewalk program thus far? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, therefore, we will move on to Parks. Mr. Ashley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Parks Recreation has a $3.2 million budget. The first project is Adams Run Trail Greenway, $374,000. It designs a multi-use trail which follows the Adams Ditch. Construction is in 2018 and 2019. Second project is Bald Street Fitness Center. This is $57,000 to replace the hot water heater and storage tank system that has failed out there. Canal Park Stadium improvements is $400,000. We have a source of GO and Canal Park revenue funds. These are improvements to the stadium. Possible items include sports netting, lighting, HVAC, and joint sealing. There was legislation that you'll get soon on the sports netting because that needs to be put up before the season begins.
Question, Mr. Ashley. In terms of Bald Street, is there any participation from the county on this?
No.
Okay. Kind of figured. Okay, very good. Chestnut Ridge?
Okay, Chestnut Ridge Park, $75,000 for rehabilitation. This is going to be done to support the Kenmore Neighborhood Initiative that Planning Department is overseeing. Copley Road soccer fields. This would be 3 new practice fields on land owned by the City of Akron. We'll be working with Gaza on the construction of these. This will help reduce wear and tear on the existing fields.
Thank you.
Okay, the next 2 projects are Lower Cuyahoga River. The first one is restoration. This is near Rack 27. They relocated sewer with the Euler conveyance, and on the north side and south side they're going to do restoration. North side is Cascade Valley Park, Memorial Parkway unit. Lower Cuyahoga River Phase 1 land acquisition is $295,000. The section here is south of Hazel Street towards Case Avenue, and it's land acquisition to purchase riparian corridor and for future revitalization.
Where's that at exactly?
It runs, it's south of Hazel Street and then runs down, I guess, southwest to Case. But I don't know, Michelle DeFiore could probably give you a detailed
Maybe after, yeah. If we could get
explanation.
a map of that whenever, not today, not this moment, but later. Thank you. Thanks. Go ahead, Mr. Ashley.
Forest Lodge baseball field. We're looking to construct an additional field. There's approximately 10.5 acres there. And if the Perkins School is redeveloped, there is a need for additional ball fields, and this is the location we're initially looking at.
Okay.
Glendale Steps, $52,000 for rehabilitation. There have been cleanup efforts this past fall. Dominion has pledged $2,500 for the project, and Keep Akron Beautiful is looking to hire an architect for a comprehensive landscaping plan.
Okay. I assume that they're going to lean toward preserving those the best they possibly can versus replacement. Right, Mr. Swirsky? Okay, moving on. Mr. Ashley?
Okay. The gorge dam removal, contaminated sediments. This is $750,000 Ohio Department of Natural Resources grant to provide the remediation and design for the removal of the gorge dam. Of course, this location is north of Riverside and impacts Cascade Valley Park and the Gorge Metro Park.
So this is actually for remediation itself? Or is it planning?
Oh, the design.
The design, okay, I was gonna say, it seems like. I was gonna say, cause that, man, I was gonna say 750. Didn't think that was for that. All right, very good. Joy Park Center?
Joy Park Community Center is $30,000. Replace the flooring in the multi-purpose room and kitchen. There is going to be asbestos removal required. In 2017, we did rehab the room.
Good.
Kenmore Senior Center is $65,000, and that's replaced the shingle roof system that was installed back in 1989. And then this past year, we've also addressed the HVAC at the center.
Good.
On the Mason Park ball fields, we have $50,000 for regrading of the existing ball field area. It's a carryover from last year, and we have removed the backstops in 2017. And then this year, they'll do the design for the regrading and the construction of a new field.
Okay.
Miscellaneous parks and community centers is $200,000 income tax for small capital improvements at various parks and community centers. Yeah, and this is an increase from last year. He had $150,000.
For miscellaneous?
Yes.
Thank you.
Park East, we have $20,000. It's approximately acre site which runs along the towpath and the Howell Canal between barges and down up to Channelwood Village. We'll be working in partnership with Reimagining Akron Civic Commons Group. There were a series of public meetings last year, and they're going to continue this year. And there is night funding assigned to it through them, and they're going to do some wayfinding and testing ideas this year. And this is just our share to help implement future capital improvements that they deem necessary.
Very good. Reservoir. Oh, yes, Mr. Malkovich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. Is there any money going to be allocated to the football fields up at Reservoir Park?
That's the next one.
Practice field they have up there?
We don't have in this line item, $25,000 is for design, and they're fixing the restroom and storage wall. If that's an item that we can address with this, we will. We can work with Parks. But, I mean, there needs to be a larger plan for Reservoir Park. It needs major improvements, but this is just the start.
Okay, very good. Any other questions on this? None? Good.
The Rubber City Heritage Trail, we have $120,000. This is basically a placeholder for now. We're studying the development of this multi-use recreational trail. It actually covers 5 wards in the city, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 10. There was legislation introduced today to file a grant application with ODNR. This would be a several-year project, and they're looking at what phasing we're going to do at this point.
Very good. Yes. Oh. Okay. Veterans Memorial Park.
This is what Helen referred to earlier. We dropped that down to $50,000 for design. This would be a memorial to veterans of war from Summit County, Ohio. And we're looking at South Akron area.
Okay.
For this.
Public space.
Public space improvements, $250,000. Design and construction of improvements to address deficiencies. We're looking to work with the Friends of Metro Parks to revitalize neighborhoods through engagement and select 1 to 2 parks and do a comprehensive plan and redevelopment of those sites.
Thank you. Sims?
So what exactly does that mean?
I can shed a little light on that, hopefully. So one of the mayor's goals has been to look at public space in the city a little differently, and we did a parks inventory of all the parks in the city last year. Happy to make that available.
Yes, please.
And really a comprehensive inventory to look at what do we have. And so some of the things we found are we have 98 baseball fields in the city, and we probably don't need that many, but they're not evenly distributed. Gathering a lot of data like that, the idea would be a lot of our parks they're public spaces the city owns, but it's probably fair to say they're not as engaging with the neighborhood as they could be. Especially the idea, there's a trend now toward having parks where you can more socialize and kind of linger as opposed to always going for a game. Games are important too. So the idea behind this item is that we would pick a couple parks and we would look at kind of redesigning them. And redesign might be as simple as adding like a walking path around the park, nice landscaping, lighting, the kind of things that kind of make a park like a passive space that you could really enjoy as a neighborhood. And so the idea here is that we would try to pick a couple, and then if we're able to budget for this every year, start doing more and more parks. I think if you think about city parks, you probably have some in your own mind that are kind of compelling, and then other ones you're like, that's kind of a grassy field, and I don't know what I would do there.
Yeah, I guess that's to a point too that's interesting, because there is a growing desire for uses of parks. So I was so surprised that the overall budget for park and recreation is about, what, 1% of the overall budget, or
Good year.
just,
That's a good year for us. Yeah.
that's a good year?
But no, I'm just
Oh.
joking.
So
But if you
hopefully-
look at, though, in terms of, we've put more commitment into safety and roads, you know what I'm saying?
But park and recreation outlets are part of the whole overall equation to safety. So they kind of really are married in more ways than one. So again, I was surprised at the amount, overall amount that we're spending in park and recreations, just based on the growing need, was so very low.
And
So,
I think to your point about the budget number, the idea of this item is if we can get a couple improvements designed and really see them flourish, that might be a gateway where we can attract more grant
resources.
funding or other things that kind of up our game, I guess you could say, with parks in general.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of a general question. When we're talking about design and studies, are we talking about consultants, or are we just paying ourselves to do that?
I'll take a shot at that first. I think each of these items, it says that, it probably, depending on the project, could be different. So I think wherever we have in-house capacity to do the work, we would do it here, and it would probably therefore lower the cost that you see we're budgeting for. Sometimes on a project, we're not sure what capacity we need, and so we may, in a planning process for a given project, say, this one, we actually kind of need to hire some outside help. So I think it varies a lot.
So does that come back to council to hire a consultant? That does, doesn't it, if we have to hire a consultant? Okay. So, but you guys, like your department, planning department, say if you plan, let's say you do the Rubber City Heritage Trail, if you got the time, I know you could do it, but it's a question you got the time. Would you pay your planning department to do that out of this capital budget?
No, I mean the operating budget for the department.
Okay,
would stay
so,
okay, primarily federal.
Okay.
And I think just one other item on the studies and the design. I mean, there will be projects where we would, if we would hire that out, like you said, that would go back to council. But I think as I mentioned, other ones where we can do the work in-house. Sometimes, as you said, it is a matter of just
Right.
we would have the capacity, but we don't have the time.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, thanks.
Thank you, and I would implore my colleagues on council to approach our friends in the planning department and to work with council to, I'm sure you have ideas about some space out there that's maybe idling, sitting there idly, and it's a good opportunity. Thanks. Public facilities?
Thank you. So public facilities, we have $23.3 million allocated. The first four items on here are subject to ODOT and FAA grant funding. We have heard that the first item, the airport apron rehabilitation, has not received funding, so that will not be going forward. And the airport pavement markings did not receive funding, so that will not be going forward. But the airport obstruction removal, that's actually underway, and then the airport runway rehab, which we show at $550,000 to design 725 runway, that is moving forward at this time, with construction in 2019 at approximately $6.1 million.
Okay.
The next project, we have the Akron Municipal Courthouse. We show it at about $17.6 million for final design and to begin construction of the new courthouse. And then we also have budgeted next year approximately $11 million.
Okay, very good.
Cascade Park, or parking deck repairs, 2018. Total cost for the repairs, we've received estimate around $1.7 million, but we're looking to phase this over the next 2 to 3 years. And we're allocating $500,000 for this year to repair level 4, which
Samples?
would include water.
That was a question.
Thank you. For the Akron Municipal Courthouse, and I know there was some issues with them going over in the old health department area. Are they still going to go there, and are you guys doing a redesign? Because I know when they came to us for funding, there was, when Judge Oldfield was handling it, there were some designs that were supposed to be done, and then it seemed like everything stopped. So are they still going across the street over there? Because they were supposed to tear that down last year, and it didn't get torn down.
As far as we are aware, that is the plan, but I don't know if anybody else has any other information.
All I would add to that would be, as you mentioned, there's been some turnover, some significant turnover in the judges since that plan initially came to us, so we're still in the initial phases of design and discussions because we're trying to basically find a design that matches their budget, and right now that's kind of a challenge. So I would say that Morley space is still being considered, but we haven't gotten to the point where we can say we have a design and that's the site.
So probably not 2018, 2019?
I would say that's probably a fair assumption, that you probably won't see construction underway. You know, if so, it'd be late in the year, I would think.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sims?
So you mentioned that there would be an additional $11 million in 2019's budget? So if we don't anticipate the project going forward, this is just a 18 rolls over in the 19, the 17 mil, we won't be adding additional 11 mil or no?
That would then go to 20. The 11 million would then go to 20. Because I don't think that project. 2020. Yeah, 2020.
It'll go 2020, okay.
Yeah,
It's
this is
like
all courthouse.
11 plus 17, that's not 20. No. Okay, thank you. No problem.
And it's all courthouse fees. Very good. Any further questions from anyone? Okay, good, thank you. We can now move on to, whatever's next, parking deck?
Yes, I did the parking deck, those repairs for level 4, and the next one would be the Cascade Garage Fan Room restoration. This is renovations to accommodate building maintenance and repair the air circulation fans. There should have been 2 pieces of legislation today, one to file an application to enter an agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and a second to advertise for bid.
Very good.
Fire concrete replacement program, $100,000. It's an annual program and will include replacement of the concrete drive at Fire Station number 11, which is located at 1688 Akron Peninsula Road. Fire Station number 2 replacement, we have $1.6 million. This is part of the issue 4 money, final design, and to start construction of a new 3-bay facility at 952 East Exchange Street with completion in 2019. Fire Station number 12 replacement, that's for design this year, and again, that's the issue 4 funds. Fire Station kitchen program, $40,000. It's a carryover from last year. Repairs of fire station kitchens and training and meeting areas, and I believe last year the fire department spent time just looking at different designs and cost savings and how to best rehabilitate their space.
Yes, question, Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ashley, can you tell me when we would expect the rebuild of Fire Station 12? What year?
Yeah, we're looking at 19 and 20.
Okay.
For that,
Yeah.
the fire department.
2019 and 2020.
Sorry, just to add to that, so Mayor Horgan said he doesn't want 2 fire stations under construction at the same time. So as soon as Fire Station 2 is complete, they'll start construction on 12, but the design for 12 will happen while they're constructing the new Fire Station 2. So likely next year, late next year, you might see construction on 12 start.
There was design done for it when I first came on council, which was about 6 years ago. In fact, I went and talked to the architect. He came up with 2 designs. But will you be looking at those designs, or will you be starting from scratch?
We will be looking at those designs. However, we need to update them to reflect new current federal
Sure.
guidelines.
Sure. Okay.
So I would say 80% of the existing design could be used, but we'll have to make some adjustments.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Samples.
Ellen, you may be able to answer this. So when they're constructing station number 2, where will those firemen and women be housed at?
Yeah, I think Chief Kaut can probably take that.
Good afternoon, thank you. While Fire Station number 2 is being built, we currently house a fire engine and a med unit, and the plan is for the engine to run out of Station 5, which is in Ellett, and the med unit will run out of Station 8 on Kelly and Archwood.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sims?
So Just on the design, the 1.6 and 200,000, what's the difference between the two? Is this, do we anticipate?
I'm sorry,
So
the
what was
difference between
the difference in design cost?
between
why does
station-
that seem?
Station 2, I think that's actually design and construction.
First phase.
And again, that's,
First phase of
yeah, so 1.6 million is this year's portion of the full construction of
okay.
Station 2. So you'll see another probably almost 2 million next year
Okay.
to finish the construction of Station 2. So this is just for the design of Station 12.
Okay,
So that's the
thank
price
you.
difference, yeah.
Okay, very good. Station kitchen program.
Yes. The fire station parking lots have $75,000. This is repair parking lots and driveways. It's an annual program. It includes station number 13 off of Brown Street.
Okay.
Greystone roof replacement, $300,000. As to replace the existing roof system, there have been a number of leaks over the auditorium, and it's become time, according to building maintenance, that we need to address this issue before we hurt the integrity of the building.
Okay.
Municipal building plumbing upgrade, $25,000. This is to upgrade and modernize plumbing lines and fixtures throughout the municipal building. The work will begin on the 5th floor.
Okay.
Miscellaneous service center roof, 1B replacement, $90,000 replace the roofing system at that facility. The next item is a lighting upgrade at all the facilities at Municipal Service Center. It'd be replacing the lightings in Building 1A, 1B, 2, and 3 with LED lights, and they expect a payback estimated time about 1 year.
The
for that
payback
investment.
period is 1 year?
That's what we were told.
What? Okay. Public safety.
Public works space safety and efficiency improvements, $150,000. It's from the Issue 4 funds, improves public-facing spaces and reduces safety concerns. Stubbs Justice Center asbestos abatement is $25,000, and this includes replacing ceiling tiles that are damaged. We're looking at this as an annual program. Some of the tiles date back to 1966. Stubbs Justice Center 3rd and 5th floor renovations. This is to renovate the crime scene unit and patrol operations office. The final item at Stubbs here is the Stubbs Justice Center elevator upgrade, $100,000, and they're going to replace all the hoistway door mechanics, and they say that should improve operation.
Okay.
And if there's any other questions on public facilities?
Oh, yes. Samples?
So the upgrades, renovations, and improvements to the Stubbs building, they total a little over $300,000. It just troubles me that we keep putting money into this building instead of us finding a place to move the officers. This elevator upgrade is the one that concerns me the most. It seems like they come over a lot, and we have to pass something for them to fix the elevators over there. It seems like, why wouldn't we just replace the whole elevator instead of them having to continually come over here for us to pay and fund them fixing an elevator? I mean, you can go over there on any given day and all the elevators will be down, and you have judges riding in elevators with prisoners. So I'm just concerned about what we're doing as it relates to the Stubbs building, and especially with these elevators, it's very unsafe. I'm sure the officers will attest to that. It's something that I just wish we would really pay a little attention to if we go back and look at the money that we've continued to spill out, just trying to keep the elevators working where they're not shutting down on people. It seems almost pointless at this point that we keep doing that and we don't replace the whole elevator. I don't know what the cost to that would be, but it almost seems like that's something we should think of instead of doing all these upgrades and replacing pieces and parts and then it still breaks.
Well, I know with the elevators, when we discussed it with building maintenance, this is the most cost-efficient way to keep them running for now. Otherwise, you're looking at GO, $500,000 or more, probably. But they they feel that doing this work will make those more efficient until a final decision's made on the building. That's, I wouldn't call these Band-Aid improvements, but they're not major improvements where if there's decisions made on that building, it's going to be a waste of money.
Okay, I just wanted to publicly say that I just think that we're spending a lot of money on a building that they shouldn't probably be in anyway, so I hope we can have a conversation about that when this money starts coming in from issue 4 about getting them in a better facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, Mr. Ashley. Continuing miscellaneous, abandoned, declining city-owned wells.
The miscellaneous section is about $55 million. The first item is abandoned declining city-owned gas wells. This has been in the budget in prior years as a placeholder. It's for if we determine there's a well that's no longer producing enough income to justify the continued operation, that we would close it. The second item is administration for capital, $650,000. It's annual salary, supplies, and overhead for the capital planning division. The CIS billing systems, $1 million for replacement of their billing system, which will be funded through general fund, sewer capital, and water capital funds. Debt service is at close to $46.6 million, and that's for annual services of a general obligation debt for capital improvements. Downtown beautification is at $10,000. That's an annual program that you see in the capital budget. And equipment replacement program, that's an annual replacement obsolete in vehicles, and that does include the purchase of the new ladder truck.
Can we, I think it's important the council's aware, like where we were last year in terms of equipment replacement, where we are this year. This is reflective, of course, of the income tax increase. If you could kind of just briefly let everyone know.
Well, last year we had it at 1.8 million, where it was split three-way, 600,000. Wasn't that long before that, we were actually down to 333,000 per group, but then
Council increased that budget for equipment.
So what we kept is the equipment replacement from last year in GO, and then added income tax funds to it to get to that new amount.
Very good.
So on
Thanks.
the administration part, who's that?
The administration capital?
Yeah,
That's them.
That's us. But it's not, we don't get that.
It's planning department.
And a few others. Yes.
That all goes to Helen Tomic.
And it is down. 'Cause I figured that may be asked, but last year we had it at $700,000, and if you go back to 2009, it was at 1.2 million. So we've made drastic cuts.
Right.
Administration costs.
Very good, thank you.
We're actually running the manager short in the department, and we'll continue to, because we can get the work done.
Very good.
2009.
It's 50%.
2009, it was 1.2. In 2018, it's 650,000. It's almost half.
50%.
That is the administrative.
It'd be 50% if it's...
That is administrative cuts. So from 1.2 million in 2009 to 650,000 to 2018, it's almost 50%.
And just to add on that, some of that money that we budgeted was also if we needed like hire consultants and other projects that came up. So it wasn't all through our operating budget. I mean, it's past the operating budget, but it wasn't all like assigned to staff members. So there was a little extra in there in case we needed to go ahead with a certain project and needed outside help.
Good. Okay, I think we're at downtown beautification or equipment replacement. You have a question?
Yep.
Mr. Kilby?
I got a couple questions about
Raise your hand.
Thank you. I guess, first off, all right, $46,560,000. Where was that reflected in the pie chart? I mean, is it all broken down to these other different
We do have a slide
areas?
for that.
I mean, it seems like it's a significant amount of budget
On page 5 of the slides, we showed debt service. It's at 32%. I don't know if you wanted to go back up there. Yeah, but I thought you wanted to know what the percentage of our budget was. Yeah. Yes.
Debt service is right there, 32%.
No, it's not on that. And this was just a breakdown. We even took it down further by showing just the sections that exclude water and sewer.
That's pretty good.
Steve Fricker.
Steve, Mr. Fricker.
So, I'm sorry, this is Steve Fricker from Finance Department. So next year, for the 2% income tax, we're projecting about $131 million, and that's 2% growth over this year, which would be divided with the 7327, 73 to general fund. So the capital piece would be about $35.4 million. And then there's actually other sources that go into that CIP fund that also cover some of that debt service.
So we're putting about 10 million more general obligation debt on this budget?
Yeah, we've been doing about $10 million a year for the past several years.
Mr. Neal?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I know when we were talking about the, now I don't know if it's in this budget or if it's in another one, but I still would like to know. When we did the cell tower, we talked about how we had already spent $6 million to pay down debt. Was that general obligation debt? What was that $6 million that came in from the cell tower? Is it reflected in the capital budget? Is it reflected in the operating budget? Is it debt that's debt?
No, that was reflected. It really wasn't debt. It was covering the deficit that we had in our general fund through the lower income tax revenues that we got in 2017. So it covered, it really wasn't debt related. That was all in the general fund.
So were those expenses reoccurring expenses, meaning they'll reoccur again this year, but we won't have the $500,000 that comes in from cell tower revenue anymore? And the other money went to our rainy day fund, and we're not going to touch that. So we're basically going to have that same $6 million shortfall, plus we're going to be less than $500,000 that comes in?
We will be examining other things that we can do to make up. We won't have as big a shortfall this year as we did in 2017, but we will be examining other ways that we can, address that.
Okay, thank you. This is the reason why I asked. If we could get an idea of what that was, and I know we had talked about a tool to help us as council be able to follow the budget. At first, we had thought about, it coming through the administration piece, but as I look at this, and as we hopefully, as council, can get a better understanding of the new revenue that's coming in and forecasting years out, that tool that we looked at that everyone agreed was a good tool, but at that time didn't want to act on because of the $8,000 expense. As we go through this, if we could put that somewhere so that we could follow these things all the way through, because, I mean, that's a major piece. If we were $6 million short, and that didn't pay off, that wasn't debt service that was paid off that's not going to come back anymore, we're going to fall $6 million short again this year, plus we're short that $500,000 that was coming in from the cell tower revenue. It puts us another, it's just, I had a misunderstanding of that, so that we as council can have a better way of helping to put a plan together not to have to incur that kind of debt in the future. So,
thank you.
Two things. One, if we can see exactly what that $6 million was, so we can understand that impact. And then the other thing, if, between the capital, we're going into the operating, if between that time, council can make a decision to look at that tool for us again, so that we can follow and have an understanding of how our dollars are spent.
Okay. Mr. Kilby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to debt service, okay, so we're spending like 46.5 million service this debt. How much is our general obligation debt? Can anybody give me a ballpark what that is? What is our, Mr. Ficker, what is our general obligation?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
How much is our general obligation debt?
Right now, it's about $157 million.
157 million. So if we're, adding about 10 million a year, and we're going to average probably paying off this 46
Well, we're also
million.
paying off, and I don't know what that exact figure is, we're paying off more than we're adding
So what's
every
the
year.
long-term projections, I guess, about when are we going to be able to get that debt much lower?
Yeah, it does gradually drop every year. There's a big drop in 2022. It's just the way our debt service is structured.
Okay.
But it does gradually drop, over the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you. One other thing about the TIFs, that's something that is $4.5 million coming from TIFs. Does that mean the people that have the TIFs, that are holding the TIFs, are paying that to us? And I mean, why is it in our budget if they're paying the TIFs?
Correct. So we had certain projects that we did improvements that were financed with TIF. So as we collect that TIF, we're applying it towards the debt service for the bonds that we issued to do the project.
Oh, okay, that's what that is. All right, I thought
Which is gonna
they
be part of
paid it
that
directly, but okay, it comes to us. Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Very good. Let's move on.
One thing I want to reiterate that we just had that discussion about the general fund is we are in the process of preparing the 2018 budget. We are looking to cut expenses to close that gap. We do not anticipate having a $6 million gap in 2018. We are looking to close expenses to eliminate that.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ashley.
Okay, thank you. Next project is the Fire Vehicle Refurbishment Program, $100,000. This refurbishes sound fire and EMS vehicles. Fire station miscellaneous equipment, this is an issue 4 project. Miscellaneous equipment purchases do include the extractor machines and EMS equipment. We have 2 fire structural turnout gear. The first is what has been talked about. We're providing a second set for all firefighters at $418,000. And then the second item is just their general replacement program as they need to be replaced.
A quick question, sir. What's the life on those? Now, obviously, if you only have one, it's shorter than if you have 2 in a backup, but typically what's expected?
The life on the structural turnout gear?
Yes, turnout gear.
Per NFPA guidelines, they're only to be used for 10 years from the date of manufacture. So that's regardless of how often it's used. After 10 years,
Okay.
they're deemed to be condemned. So once we purchase a set, we have a 10-year lifespan, and then it's to be condemned.
Good, thank you.
But they can be condemned, of course, earlier than that through usage. We do, and that's part of the structural turnout gear replacement program. The $50,000 is every year. Some gear comes up to be 10 years old. Other gear is damaged through, of course, the work that we do.
Right.
So we figure about a 10% a year replacement, and that would, $50,000 would provide us with about 10% of our gear to replace.
Sims?
So in the miscellaneous, do you know if the extractor machines for the facilities are in that?
Yeah, they are in that. We're hoping not to have to dip into that, because currently we are 5 short to have an extractor in each fire station, and including our fire maintenance facility. We have 2 that we're looking to purchase right now with a bid that we put out last year. We're in the process of that. And then we also have a grant that we have written through the Bureau of Workers' Compensation for another 3. So any day now, we're hoping to hear back from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, hopefully good news, and then we can use that money instead of for extractors for other needed equipment.
Excellent, thank you.
Samples? Oh, got it, covered. Very good, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, LED traffic light replacement. This is an annual program to replace lights that reach their useful life. The priority that they go by is replacing the red modules. Microwave detector replacements, $15,000.
Question, sir. It says 10,000 on here, but 50 on here. If I'm looking, no, I'm looking at it wrong. Sorry, please proceed.
Okay.
I was looking at the wrong thing.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, on the LED lighting replacements, what exactly is that? I know we had some conversation before this meeting about a plan for light replacement, LED light replacement.
Yeah, these are just for the traffic signals and not the street lighting.
So this is specifically just for the, is there a plan to have LED lighting in all of the traffic lights? Or just theirs?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hewitt from our engineering bureau.
Yeah, this is just replacement bulbs. The intent is to replace all the yellows, greens, and reds with LED bulbs.
So all of them?
Yeah, so we've been working for several years in that replacement program. This 10,000 is just a continuation of that.
Okay, thank you.
It's the purchase of the bulbs, and our staff actually installs them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ashley?
The microwave detector replacements, $15,000. This is also an annual program replacing non-functioning microwave detectors with video detection equipment. They do 2 to 3 intersections annually. Neighborhood partnerships, $220,000 from income tax, CD, and the Akron Community Foundation. Matching grants for neighborhood organizations. 911 operating software, $500,000. This is another issue 4 project. We're upgrading the existing software. Body-worn cameras. That's the second year of the grant purchase for the body-worn cameras. That came in last year. Includes a centralized cloud storage for digital evidence.
Question, will that cover the acquisition of the equipment altogether, or will there be more equipment? And is this the end of the grant?
Ken Ball, Chief of Police. So the monies that are reflected here are, we have a 5-year contract, and that is the amount that's due in 2018. And so it was partly for the acquisition of the initial hardware, which included the cameras and the docking stations and infrastructure. And it also is for monies that will be charged to us for maintaining the evidence for the relationship that we have with evidence.com of the cloud storage.
Good. So in terms of the actual equipment itself, the cameras and the docking stations, I guess, is this just an annual type of replacement program that they have established, or?
Well, we do. The contract was front-loaded some, so the cost for hardware was more in the initial years of it. But as a part of that contract, we are getting hardware replacement at 2.5 years and also at 5 years. And that was a part of the contract that was originally negotiated. So front end is a little bit higher, and then I think 4 years into it, we just start to pay maintenance costs.
There's a specific plan in place, which is important, I think, to highlight, is that there's a specific plan in place for replacement, I guess.
We do. Next generation are built right in. 2.5 and 5 years.
Especially on the technological side, it advances quite quickly. Sims?
Mr. Ball, on the IT software, did we approve that already? A couple weeks ago, a week?
Which?
The 911 software?
No, that's not. That is for an upgrade of our entire system. Those monies are split between police and fire, 60-40% right now, and it's also, there will be potentially the ability for us to monetize that with outside jurisdictions that will want to use our system, but that's just for the initial upgrade, and we haven't spent those funds yet. We are very far along in that process. I think we have everything worked out. It just is a matter of us being able to have the time and the people resource to get it installed.
Who we'll see, we'll see, everything that's in here, just to remind everyone, everything that's in here, we will see again in the form of legislation. So that will, in fact, come
I just thought we
before us.
had a 3-year contract or something for the 911 software upgrade a couple of weeks ago. Is this a multi-year contract?
Deputy Chief Capers may have more specific information.
I think the conversation you're referring to, Councilperson Sims, is some other software that we are using currently and will continue to use going forward. This $500,000, as I understand it, split 60-40 between police and fire, will be to upgrade our 911 software to allow us going forward to maybe take text to 911s and to upgrade our ability to monitor how long it takes to answer the phone, those kind of things, so we can do quality of service improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ashley.
Thank you. The Police Citizens Academy, $100,000. This is another issue 4 project to improve development training, hardware. This was also mentioned in the Akron Beacon Journal article highlighted there. That our intent is for increased trust and transparency.
Okay, Mr. Neal has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to stop you. I know you were getting ready to get on roll. I should ask this question a little bit back. Just want to make sure I understood the neighborhood partnerships, that right there. How is that, I should probably know this, but how is that reflected in neighborhood partnerships? Is that with actual neighborhood groups or?
That's the annual neighborhood partnership program where we work with local groups, block clubs,
So it's reflected,
CDCs.
the portion that is,
This reflects the 3 funding sources. The Akron Community Foundation is our private source. We put some income tax money in there, and then a third component is the Community Development Block Grant Funds. And those are brought back to council as well before we enter into agreements with different block clubs and neighborhood groups.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ashley?
Thank you. Police gear replacement, $150,000. Again, this is the issue 4 funding. Miscellaneous equipment, which will include SWAT technical body armor and tasers. And they typically replace units that are over 5 years old. The police in-car video system is $190,000. With issue 4 funds, replace outdated and unsupported in-car video systems with a new system to work in conjunction with the new body-worn cameras. And this will be used over the next 4 to 5 years. Police management software, hardware, training, and implementation, $75,000 of issue 4 funding to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of those programs. The final item, are there any other questions for police? I think this is the last item for them. Okay, this last item on this page is the rectangular rapid flash beacons, $25,000. This was recommended by the Federal Highway Administration for uncontrolled bike and pedestrian crossings. However, the Federal Highway Administration did rescind the use of these in December, on December 21st. There was a memo that came out. So this project either might be pulled or they'll look for other ways to do these uncontrolled marked crossings to improve pedestrian and car, so there's reduce the safety concerns.
Thank you. School flashing?
The school flashing lights remote access, $60,000. This is upgrade obsolete remote school flashing light controllers, and this is an annual program in our school zone flashing system. Street light maintenance is $275 for street lighting assessment. That's an annual program. The street trees we show at $100,000 income tax. This year we're targeting tree removal in like a central grid of the city to provide cost savings.
Good.
And then the final project is a Waterloo Road signal support replacement at $50,000 in general funds. This is from South Main Street all the way to Coventry Street. This replaces the deteriorated signal supports. They're looking to do 4 per year over the next 5 years. And they have the intersections. You have Main Street, Glenmount, Firestone Park, or Firestone Boulevard, Brown Street, and Coventry.
Pretty good. I'd like to recommend a 5-minute break, if everyone's okay with that. Just want to let everybody know that there will be dinner. I bought everyone steaks. over there in the conference room. I can't back that up, sorry. I think our clerk took care of that for us, but, so I'm just going to recommend a 5-minute break for now, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up and then have dinner. Thank you. Sorry, we'll start in about 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you. All right. We have sewer, small business. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have about 3.5 pages left. So we have housing and economic development remaining here. Let's go ahead and proceed.
Thank you.
Tomek.
Is this on? I think I just did.
Thank you all.
So for the Housing and Community Services budget, this encompasses our annual allocation from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, encompassing community development block grant funds, the home program, and the emergency solutions grant program. Before I get started, I should qualify this by indicating that as of today, we are not aware of what our 2018 allocation is going to be. Just to put things in perspective, in 2017, we were not made aware of our allocation until perhaps April of 2017. City Council approved the consolidated plan budget in July of 2017. We submitted the application in August of 2017, and we did not receive our funds until October of 2017. So if you can imagine, that's 10.5 months into the calendar year. It is a year after the fiscal year started, and it was after the 2017 fiscal year ended in September 30th of 2017. We got our money in October. So that's just to put things in perspective. The budget we have before you is about $6.4 million. Again, these are just estimates based on the budget that Congress passes, and then based on the formula that HUD allocates for our annual receipt of the Community Development Block Grant Funds, Home, and ESG. So starting off with, we have approximately $250,000 allocated towards acquisition, relocation, and clearance. As we start looking at our different neighborhoods and looking at ways to make some improvements, if there is an opportunity to purchase projects, or if some houses may be in severely dilapidated condition, we do have a line item in here to purchase those, relocate the residents, and demolish the structures. Also working with our nonprofits, if there should be an opportunity for land purchases or land acquisition, this is a mechanism for us to purchase those properties. Under the Chodo CDC housing portion, this would be a partnership with agencies like East Akron Neighborhood Development Corporation, Nazareth, who am I missing? Mustard Seed, and with our developing CDCs, the Well, Community, Kenmore Neighborhood Alliance, and opportunities to partner with them to do some of the work in the neighborhoods in partnership with us or on our behalf. The demolition program, right now we're looking at approximately $450,000. This is in addition to the HAB budget, but looking at demolishing vacant structures, garages, and on rare occasions, commercial buildings. For Habitat for Humanity, we've partnered with them for about 3 years now. This would be a continuation of that partnership and providing about $40,000 per structure for them to build new houses throughout the city. And then we also have resource funds in here, strictly CDBG funds to pay for annual salaries, benefits, and overhead costs for the development staff, the rehabilitation staff, and the comprehensive planning division. Public improvements. On rare occasions, there may be opportunities to put CDBG funds into some of our low-income public improvements. So this is a mechanism to allow us to do that. Many of you may be aware of the Urban Neighborhood Development Corporation. It's an arm of the City of Akron. They have for years provided housing opportunities or housing construction in some of our older neighborhoods, and this would be a continuation of that program. Disability modifications. We have partnered with a nonprofit to do disability upgrades to homeowners. This would be an instance where we could put ramps on the front entrances of different homeowners' housing, or perhaps they may need railings in their bathtubs. So this is an opportunity for us to provide that resource to the homeowners. Emergency and transitional housing. This is through the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. These funds are strictly to be used for emergency and transitional housing. We are essentially a pass-through. All of those resources go straight to our ESG and transitional housing providers. Minor home repair.
Question.
Yes.
In terms of the ESG, is that, does every city throughout the United States, for lack of a better term, receive these funds, or do we, I know we've gotten and received these for many, many years, but I'm just curious, is this across the board, or?
It is available to larger participating jurisdictions. That's how HUD refers us as a PJ. So in Akron, Summit County, we have 4 PJs: Akron, Barberton, Cuyahoga Falls, and Summit County.
Okay.
Out of those 4, we are the only ones that receive ESG funds. And I would say larger communities, Cleveland, Columbus, they all receive ESG funds, but smaller ones do not.
Okay. Thank you.
Minor home repair program is a partnership with Rebuilding Together. They do, like it says, minor home repairs for low-income or elderly handicapped homeowners. I think it's up to $5,000. If they might need new siding, new roof, new furnace repairs, those type of activities. All of those are referred straight to the minor home repair program folks at Rebuilding Together. Paint program is a partnership with the folks on the west side, Greater West Side Council of Block Clubs, and they do a paint program for the folks on that area. Homeless prevention is a little different than the emergency transitional housing program. This is where we offer rapid rehousing dollars or homeless prevention dollars to keep folks in their homes, and if they have a court-ordered eviction to leave their apartment, then we, along with Infoline, partner with them and work with the landlord to make sure they can stay in those homes and perhaps pay back rent. If the landlord won't accept back rent, then we'll work with them to find a new place to stay, provide security deposit, and 1 or 2 months worth of rent. So you can contract that piece out? With Infoline, correct. Mm-hmm. Community Gardens is, this is our gardening program. I think we have 6 or 7 different locations. We partner with Let's Grow Akron to allow residents to sublease a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 20 parcel to do gardening for their own personal benefit. Community Services Program is looking with partnerships through different entities throughout the city to provide social service, community service type of activities, focusing on youth, seniors, and families, and that's about $475,000. That would be Urban League, Weather Vane, Infoline. Those are the ones that come to mind right now. Fair Housing is a contract with Fair Housing Contact Service to make sure that we're in compliance with federal fair housing guidelines. Neighborhood revitalization and sustainability. These are grants and loans to homeowners, and it's a partnership with our lead program. So as our rehab staff goes out and does lead remediation, if there's a gap in that funding, then these funds are utilized to fill that gap and make sure that the houses are up to code compliance.
Those are only dedicated to the paint piece?
As of right now, it is just in partnership with the lead program, so it's a subsidy. In case the lead funds aren't sufficient, then we utilize these funds for those homeowners.
Is it measured? Because the last paint that was utilized was in the 70s, right?
It was 1979, so
Yeah,
or 78.
Is there a point of, probably not, is there a way to measure, like what percentage? I mean, obviously in 1980, probably 100% of the houses out there had.
I don't know right off the top of my head about how many houses, but I'd say over 90% of our houses were built before 1978. But we have that number, we can get it to you.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah.
More.
Yep, we can get that for you.
Good.
What makes it difficult is a lot of times it's just painted over, so you could have lead paint
Underneath, right. Yeah. No, I was just curious if there's a way to measure it and if there's a... Mr.
John
Valley?
and we'll get you that information.
What department are with you? Are you with Mr. Valley? Ms. Sims?
So Helen, on the neighborhood revitalization sustainability, the 1.4, are those funds evenly distributed between the abatement program and loans for housing rehabilitation, or is there a 70-30 split, or?
It is part of the lead program right now. There's a component in here for the roofing program as well. We do a roofing program. So we operate through rehab division. There is a roofing component. I think they probably do 100 a year. And we'll go, if there's a leaky roof, they're about to lose their house insurance because of a leaky roof, they can call in and we can work with them to get their roofs replaced. So it's a combination of the rehabilitation in conjunction with the lead and the roofing program.
I know we do the lead abatement stuff. Who do we contract out with for the roofing stuff?
It's the same contractors as the lead. There's a roofing component with that and then the lead component with that.
Thank you.
Economic development?
And we have Mr. Brad Becker for the economic development portion.
Mr. Becker.
Okay, we're going to go through these rather quickly, hopefully. I'll give you a brief overview. First one is the brownfield assessments and remediation. That's $225,000. Basically, what we're using it for is applications for phase ones, phase twos, and we have some cleanups of some various brownfield sites throughout the city. US EPA brownfield grant. We are exploring some opportunities through the US EPA to use some US funding, some federal government funding, to do some of the major cleanups that we have throughout the city in the brownfield area. Middlebury East, that was a brownfield. We are still doing groundwater treatment out there, so we still need some funding to continue that.
Is this, where's that located exactly?
I'm sorry?
Where's that located at, the Middlebury East cleanup?
Middlebury East is Dave's Supermarket,
As I figured.
around that area.
I figured as much. Good, thank you. Oh, anybody else?
On the brownfields, are is one of those like Lincoln Elementary? Or no?
Not that I know of, no.
I'm just under I was looking under the EPA. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, commercial industrial development?
It could be. Ascot Parkway improvements. We're doing some full-depth pavement improvements out there. I don't know if you've been out there lately, but the pavement is in very bad shape, and we're going to help all the industrial park residents out there, all the businesses, by doing these improvements, and they will be assessed, just like our regular residential program.
Good.
Bounce is the mayor's initiative for entrepreneurship. This is going to be in the old Akron Global Business Accelerator. The number here for the $450,000, there's also a $2 million grant that we are getting from the state, from the state capital grant that we asked for last year. So that will also help us with these improvements. And we're anticipating these improvements to be completed by the end of the year.
Okay. So the Bounce program has an additional $2 million?
Yes. And that's for construction.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Segedy?
If I could just add too, I think many of you heard the exciting announcement on Friday about the partnership with eBay, and I think we'll really be able to leverage that with Bounce. So some exciting things.
Good.
So Bounce's focus primarily isn't just technology. We're looking at the full gamut, because it looks like we went up in Northside Market, I don't even think there's a technology place in there, period. But, so we're looking at the, is the Bounce incubator, for lack of a better term, that's just not for technology?
No.
Small business entrepreneurs.
Of all, it runs the whole gamut. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Commercial industrial development, the development research for $25,000 is just opportunities throughout the city where we're able to help some businesses. Evans Avenue development, that again is a large site, over 70 acres on Evans Avenue, that we need to do a little bit of site research for prospective clients that want to put a business there. Firestone Business Park, which is our new industrial park that we're going to construct this year down in the Firestone Park area, adjacent to the old 1200 building. Firestone is still making tires there, race tires. We have about 17 acres that are going to be developed, and the Department of Environmental Services is going to invest in 6 of those acres and put their new facility there.
Good news.
Yep.
Global
Drive. Still investigating off of Kennedy Road. This would go into our industrial park over off of Gilcrest, just be an access point. Howard Street parking lot. This is on the west side of Howard Street, right behind the old gas station, right behind Tony Tropy's new apartments. It's going to be actually a trailhead, which is going to be shared with Tony Tropy's area there. So we're going to construct the parking, the city will own it, and he will pay for the parking spaces he uses.
Go ahead, Mr. Neal.
What, is it going to be asphalt?
Supposed to be, I said, of course, it's going to have permeable asphalt.
There is.
Yeah,
There is, there already exists.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Becker?
Land banking, these are things that we're always looking at to get some vacant parcels in the area for development. Lockheed Martin, there's possibility of a large new business going in down there, which would want a roadway over from Derby Downs, actually through our area, over to Lockheed. So we're looking at that. They would actually pick up a lot of the cost. We would design it. So
Cross our fingers.
keeping that on our radar here.
So the LS under the JED, next to the JED on land...
Sims?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next to the land banking, the $100,000, the JED, and what's the LS?
Land sale, probably.
Land sale. Massillon Road Industrial Park. This would be design of the roadway, extension of the roadway, all the way over to Pickle Road. We have about 40 to 50 acres still available in Massillon Road. So for users to gain access back there, we would have to extend the roadway.
Off Pickle?
No, it would actually be off of Picton Parkway.
Gotcha.
Rolling Acres Development, as you know, we demolished the mall. So we're looking at some preliminary plans on how to reutilize that site. It's about, we have about 65 acres, 65 to 70 acres out there that are going to be usable. Rubber Bowl, we are in the process of gaining the Rubber Bowl from the land bank, and once we do that, we are going to start demolishing that in phases. The first phase would be next to the Soapbox Derby in order to provide safety to the Soapbox Derby for that portion of the Rubber Bowl.
Mr. Neal has a question, then
Thanks,
Sam.
Mr. Chairman. I just want to, those the Rolling Acres and the Rubber Bowl are two, if you go online, two pieces of property, one because of the historical memories that people have, and because of the land mass, that you see a lot of discussion from the community in regards of what could go there, and you hear some pretty creative things. Has there been any thought to, like, kind of just, almost with the charrettes they've done in some of the communities, just ask the community for their ideas on what's in that area, or do we already have plans, or are we kind of figuring this thing out as we go?
For Rolling Acres, we really don't have a plan per se. We are looking at some kind of industrial park, hopefully, or something in that nature. We've gotten the gamut of every idea, from putting elderly housing there to you name it. So, but
just from a standpoint of just engaging citizens, council got an email this past week about someone encouraging opportunities for more citizen engagement. I just know from what I've seen on social media and just reading things, these two places kick up a lot of conversation, good conversation about what could go there. It'd be a way to engage our citizens.
Sure. We'll take a look at that. Okay. We'll investigate that.
Ms. Samples?
Thank you. On this Rubber Bowl redevelopment, this $400,000, I see the GO Summit and State. How much of this would the city be responsible for the demolition?
The way this is broken out right now, we have a request into the state for a state capital grant of $200,000 towards the demolition of the entire Rubber Bowl. Summit County Land Bank has committed, I believe, 100,000. So the city would be committed to about 100,000 of that
Be a general
So
obligation.
right now in the city, the land bank still owns it, right? They have the title to it, they have a clean title to it?
That's correct.
Don't they have a lot of funding? Why won't they just tear it down?
They don't have that much funding, and they're very limited in what they can use their funding for on commercial structures.
Right.
A lot of their funding is really relegated to residential.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Very good. Small business and neighborhood districts.
Again, a lot of these areas here for the financial assistance and places where a lot of this funding goes is to support small businesses, to like the Greater Akron Chamber as our partner in developing new business relationships and drawing businesses in here. We help them out because we are also a part with other companies in the Greater Akron Chamber. Corridor redevelopment studies for downtown, you know, with DAP, we have the downtown business plan, neighborhood business districts. We're looking at the facade grants and things of that nature to help some businesses.
Good. So reference the Greater Akron Chamber piece. What do we get for that?
Basically, that is an annual contract that we have with the Greater Akron Chamber to support what they do for us. And they do a lot of studies for us when we have businesses come in that want a lot of demographics of the city and, you know, what our average wage is and who's hiring right now. And all of that statistical data, Greater Akron Chamber has at their fingertips, and they're able to support, to give us that.
Okay. Mr. Swirsky?
I'm just wondering why that's an ongoing study or something. I mean, you do a study, you have that information.
Well, a lot of it is updated every year. I mean, things do change. It's not.
Because you know, these neighborhood business districts really are critical to our bounce back. And I notice 100,000 of the chamber, 200,000 to business. I'm just thinking out loud with you, but I'd like to see more emphasis on the neighborhood business districts, or making the chamber serve the neighborhood business districts better. I don't even know if they're connected with each other. Are they connected with each other?
With the neighborhood business districts?
Yeah, because when I called the chamber and asked for information about the businesses in my neighborhood district, they didn't have any. They didn't have lists like that. You know, it was like they were oblivious to it. Is there some way to get what they do to serve the neighborhood or businesses?
We will reach out to them on that. You know, a lot of what the businesses who use the chamber, they pay a fee, and it is unfortunately a lot of the corporations that pay the most to the chamber to use their services.
But some of those resources could be maybe plugged in better to the neighborhood.
It's one of the things that with the mayor's initiative for economic development, we do want to work better with the chamber as well as with Summit County to get a lot of these things out into the neighborhood business districts.
Yeah, it seems like they're the ones who need, you know, professional help and skills and technical and technology things that might help them, that like a whole resource center for the neighborhood business districts or resource program.
Yep. No, I
right
agree.
now, I don't see much communication even. I mean, could that be part of our contract? Could we stipulate, could we stipulate that the chamber, if we give them money, we want to see specific programs that they're helping our business districts?
Yeah, we can put that in the scope.
Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleague, too, that I'd like to see a little, not a little, but a lot more resources at the neighborhood levels. You know, I appreciate what we have happening in central locations, but we know that small business is lifeblood of some neighborhoods. I appreciate the facade opportunities to upgrade in that way, but there's really a much, I think, deeper need that will help kind of really advance some of the small businesses that are in our neighborhood. So I'd like to see some of that. And my question is, relative to the small business assistance, the $175,000, what exactly does that, what is exactly is that? Like, what can you, how can small business access that, and for what can they access it for?
Well, $175,000, of course, $175,000 isn't a lot. They can access that money to help them with some marketing, help them with some training. A lot of it is training dollars that they can apply for. But the biggest thing with this $175,000, when a small business comes to us and they need funding, we generally will send them to the SBA, which is a place that they can get a small business loan at a good rate and they can get up to $50,000, sometimes $75,000 to help them. Those are the things that we try to do with small businesses, because small businesses, when you send them to a bank is very reluctant to lend to a small business because they don't have the capital, or they don't have anything to back up what they want that loan for. But the SBA will lend to a small business.
Yeah, so it may be part of that resources is coordinating some of that so people better understand that, along with what the work that the chamber does. Even $170,000, $5,000 don't seem like a lot to some people, but for some folks, $10,000 would just kind of help them get over the hump. But if there's other resources, maybe that's part of maybe leveraging the resources that we do have in the city with what could be available outside of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swirsky.
Yeah, just to give you some needs that I've noticed in the business districts in my ward. I mean, extra security, cameras, the sidewalks being cleared. You know, we're trying to get people to walk more and ride their bikes more, but if they go up to a business district and they haven't cleared the sidewalk, or we haven't, and maybe just those three things would be something that the city could be working with the chamber, or I don't know where else, to help with that. Because the police are already, you know, burdened by, they're doing so much they can in terms of the neighborhood patrols and walking the beats when they can, and they've increased those. But maybe we could help with that in our budget.
And in the small business districts, well, Highland Square is a good example. All those businesses have committed, or at least most have committed, to actually hire some off-duty police officers to help them patrol at night when they have some of the problem areas top
Right,
up.
is the city going to administer that?
We actually have a Highland Square Development Corporation that we're going to look at administering it. So it won't be the city, but it will be an arm of
Somebody, you're helping us do it. Yeah,
Akron
good.
Development.
And I imagine other business districts have some of the same concerns.
Yes, and that would be something where we could talk to the businesses and sort of band them together, that if they're willing to come together, and
We'll administer it.
we're going to look into that.
Okay.
There are some things that there are possible conflicts with the city
Right.
paying an off-duty police
Right.
officer. So we
Right.
have to have law look into that.
Right.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Oh, yes, Ms. Sims.
Not to delve in it, maybe, you know, and taking a more, I guess, broader look at when you say small business. For example, not to get into my Ward 3 and 4's business, when I look at the Copier Road corridor, right? And so parking is probably from 1903, when they ride horses, you can pull up. And the parking and need for that business district, really to enhance it, probably needs to look a little different. I mean, you have to, you know, you have to make sure you can get the 4 spots that's out there. And so as we think about how we grow business, some of the structural changes is a part of that too. And so I know that's working together with planning or engineering, some other folks. But that would, I mean, I think go a long way with helping to enhance business and at the neighborhood level too. Thank you.
Similar to what we're going to do on Exchange Street by the university with those small businesses, so.
Mr. Soderworski.
This snow plowing issue, you didn't respond to that. I mean, I'm assuming that other business districts have the same problem. People want to walk to the small businesses in the winter. The businesses don't have the capacity to hire, well, maybe they could, but they don't. And so people aren't going to the small businesses, they're getting their car and driving out to the malls. Maybe the city, we clear the streets, maybe the city could find a way to make sure that the small business districts are clearing, those sidewalks are cleared too, so people can walk over there. Is it?
I would have to explore that, I think, with Public Works.
That's a Public Works
Right.
thing.
The only thing is that I think what you're going to end up doing is assessing those businesses for the city or whoever to clear the walks, because
Right.
technically.
Well, could we put some money in the budget for it?
I'll have to put a limit on you and Swirsky.
we can take a look with planning.
Now Neil's guys. See what you guys do?
So this is the last time I get to talk out here.
I won't say anymore.
But, you know, if my memory serves me correctly, we had a young person last year walking in the street who got hit by a car that was later ticketed for walking in the streets. And part of that was because we do have these challenges with some of the smaller businesses where their sidewalks are not clear and people are walking in the street. So again, back to safety and really looking at structural changes that, so we don't have those issues, I think go a long way with boosting the aesthetic look of a business district and really giving people real access to, opportunities to access the businesses, because you're not trying to barter over 3 spots. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the comments from my colleagues. I think that's where we have the opportunity to leverage citizen input to help. But I would like to throw this out. I mean, we did just increase the, the 0.25% tax increase, and I was asked this by some residents. They say, now, I'm paying to have my streets improved with my income tax, and then when my streets are improved, I'm going to be assessed. Can we, what they're saying is it's like double dipping. Is there any way to kind of get an idea of the assessment that's coming to businesses that are paying their increased portion of their employees' income tax on their side, to see if that even generates any revenue to do the special things that were just mentioned? I'm just throwing that out there, just one. But the other thing is this. I think, Mr. Segedy, you and I had a chance to talk about this. One of the challenges is, in some of our neighborhoods, is having an idea of the life cycle of ownership on some of these buildings in some of our neighborhoods, so that we can secure them to make sure that we could possibly develop the business district the way we want to before someone outside the community buys it and maybe put something there that isn't as conducive to the neighborhood development. And what makes me think of this, I thought somewhere in the budget we had a place where there was for land acquisition for certain areas. And I know we don't think about that in residential neighborhoods, but I mean, I've got some spots that's shared between 3 and 4 that would love to be able to make sure we secure them for the right type of business to go there.
I think that's where, some more strategic planning, but that might be an opportunity in the future with the land bank. They are getting more involved in commercial properties. Perhaps the land bank working with us to acquire, like I'm thinking specifically tax delinquent properties, where then there could be a process to do a request for proposals or reuse that land. I see what you're saying in terms of having a public or a quasi-public entity maybe kind of look at reuse of those properties in a strategic way. It's a tough issue.
We do have $100,000 set aside for land banking from JED. Half is JED funds and the other half is land sale funds. Just for a reminder, I'd like to invite everyone back next Monday at 4 o'clock. We're going to continue this discussion with the exciting water and sewer discussion. So look forward to that, and we'll see everybody next Monday. Thank you all for your patience.
Yeah, that's how it's.